Board games, we are talking about a Kickstarter for a board game. We're not going to shout. We are starting off a post-mortem to talk about what did happen, and we will talk about what went well and what went badly. That also we will tell. What maybe we will improve for next time, although there's some stuff that went well, and we repeat it. Keep that in mind. Post-mortems and a game about wee whimsical creatures, Kickstarter. Wee whimsical creatures and try to identify them after someone makes noises, Kickstarter. It's what we're talking about. Board games and post-mortems for Kickstarter for a game about wee whimsical creatures and try to identify them after someone makes noises. I'm not going to shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. And I am Bez, and this is the lovely Dina. Thank you for joining me. And this is episode 469, I believe, of Bezzy Beats and Briefer Bledder. So yes, thank you. So in case people don't know, you were the marketer for this. I did do a bit of the legwork in terms of putting the stories together. You did a wee bit of the legwork. You did a bit, you made up a plan, we talked about it, and I kind of wanted you to be in charge as much as possible. And the idea here is that we're going to build up a relationship going forwards to have you in charge of Stuff by Bez Kickstarters, because even though there's other people involved, it's still Stuff by Bez, and I definitely have to learn to let go quite a lot, if you know what I mean. But the fact that potentially there might only be one Kickstarter left until people no longer get personalized envelopes, that's slightly sad, but hey ho. Hopefully the games themselves will bring enough joy. Anyway, last time when we met 2 weeks ago, we talked about what a post-mortem is. We talked briefly a little bit about a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after something makes noises. This week, we're going to actually do that post-mortem. So before we go through the regular stuff of recent highlights and whatnot, is there anything that you would like to say about the main topic, Dina?
I think it's obviously, if you haven't seen the other stream, you should definitely check it out, where we go through all the things that goes into a post-mortem and things that you look out for. And it provides a good framework for also this conversation.
And back then we decided that ultimately it gives us a chance to reflect, it gives us a chance to learn, to move forwards, and also it's not just good for our projects and for learning, but it's also good for ourselves as people to take a moment, to take a breather. And that's a really nice thing, to regroup. So, without further ado, let's crack on and talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. What have you been up to, Dina? Would you like to start?
I could, yeah. I have been visiting other people's streams, Dutch Yoda to be specific, and played games, which has been a lot of fun. And I decorated my place all Halloweeny for the streams, which was, and we're going to play more streams with Dutch Yoda next week, which I'm really excited about.
Fantastic. What are you playing?
We are playing Damnation, the Gothic game, which is like a bit of a skirmish battle royale game that I'm currently helping out on Kickstarter from a Welsh designer, Chris Rees. And it's it's kind of mean. It's like very mean. So I'm really wondering how this is going to go.
So now demoing stuff is officially part of your role. Is that, if I may be so cheeky, is that because you're more of a bubbly, video-friendly personality than Chris?
maybe I am. I haven't looked too much on what Chris has been doing on screen, but obviously he seems really bubbly when we're in the meetings.
Well, that's a good sign.
But he is obviously busy, and
Yeah.
if I can help out and just make it a little bit less stressful during a Kickstarter, I'm all in for it.
And the thing is that it's about what's helpful for one person might not be helpful for the other person. And I think this is why it's always good to communicate before you're doing something and to say, hey, this is the part that's challenging for me. This is the part that I enjoy. And I would appreciate some help here. Oh yeah, this is like, for myself, I really enjoy talking, as you might have guessed by the fact that I do a daily stream. And sure, when it's on other people's streams, it's even better, or if I'm doing on other people's videos. And so for me, the help would be, okay, reach out to those people, remember to reach out. And I personally reached out on board games because I'm a friend of the show, I like to believe, and said to Donald Dennis, oh, by the way, I've not been on for a while since UK Games Expo. This is my periodical reminder to say, hey, can I come on? And yeah, I might be doing a show in December or January. I said, yeah, there's no rush. It's not like I've got a big thing. But yeah, just doing those things and getting things together. Everyone has to be mindful of what's good for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons why we're doing this post-mortem as well is, to look for what worked and what doesn't, and, create a scope of work for next time.
I would like to mention, I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah.
The S.
All the creepy crawlies.
Oh, maybe I should have, just in case someone's got a phobia of snakes, please don't look at the screen. It might already be too late. I do apologize. I will tell you when the snakes have gone. So if you've got a phobia of snakes, and also this is something that Chris is currently working on, and when there's spare moments, let's say, and this is one version with different sizes. This is one version with everything a bit more uniform. It's from royalty-free images, biodiversity, which I saw this library of images a few years ago, and I was thinking, this is amazing. I really, really want to get all these images and put them together to make a collage. And so, but then I don't have a lot of time myself. And yeah, there's so much that I want to do. And so I asked Chris to do it when they've ever got a spare moment. So yesterday they had enough time to work on these two S's, one with uniform shapes, as you can see here, one with a bit more variance. Which one do you prefer?
The first one, yeah, a bit of
this
more
one.
variant.
And then the other thing I'm going to share from my Twitter that, yes, I did a lot of drawing and doodling on things and sending a lot of stuff. It was thanks to Chris, who is doing the computer Royal Mail stuff, which would just stress me out so much. And so doing that is a real godsend. And then I do all the little doodles on the front and the self-portraits. Mina, my housemate, and Chris help with, the packing and everything. And then I cycled them over to the post office, and I don't even need to wait in a queue because the thing's already there. The label's already there, prepaid post. It's amazing. So yeah,
that is magnificent.
That was definitely the highlights of the day, getting 78, I believe, things sent. And we already have another 60-something lined up to print and hopefully send off today, or if not today, on Wednesday, because whenever you print it, this is the one thing that I think I told you last time. Yeah. If you don't send it within a week, you lose the money. But you are allowed to ask for a refund, but then it might take a lot of phone calls and stuff to actually get those refunds. They refunded us eventually in yeah, I think it must have been exactly 13 days. And then, but they only refunded 50% of them. The remainder, Chris had to go get on the phone to ask them for help. But yeah, and so, yeah,
What a
CD
mess.
said, exciting times. My mum said something arrived at her place for me. Looking forward to receiving it. It's awesome.
Oh,
And so, yes, the easy way to tell from the outside, frankly, is it should have my address on it. And I'm willing to say that the first 3 letters of my postcode are N15. I'm not willing to say anything more than that, but there's, a good few thousand people who live in that one small couple of streets. And so it doesn't give too much away but yes, and there should also be a self-portrait of someone in red on it. But yes,
lots of drawings.
Thank you for joining us. And that was definitely my recent highlight. Oh, I almost forgot. I went to the pub as well last night. I did play 3 different games. I played a game about quickly grabbing creatures and watching out for turnips. That went well. I played it with someone else. They really enjoyed it. So I was like, would you like to play again? And they, absolutely. I really enjoyed that. Well, that's a good sign. And then a third player came along and they were like, oh, would you like to play? I'm not sure. We could play something different. And they're like, no, I'd like to play again. So yeah, that's a really good sign. So that's going to be maybe the second or third Bezzy budget bag. A game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. The turnips are the key part. And then we played a game about Wibble. We played Wibble. Wibble is the LDEC game of the month. So every day or so, I mean, I'm trying to make it every day, but there's going to be how to play and a shout out to reviews, because like I looked up, we've had like 7 reviews just for Wibble, or like maybe 15 if you include all the ones that talked about it incidentally. So that's a lot of content to say, hey, check out all those old reviews from 5 years ago and check them out. And yeah, oh, finally, we played Blitzkrieg, which is, the tagline is World War II in 20 minutes. Have you played this?
No, but I've seen it.
So
was it fun?
It was really interesting. It took us, I believe, from finishing reading the rule sheet to finishing the game and having it packed away, it took us about 27 minutes. So it was close to 20 minutes. It's not a speed game, it's a turn-based game, but you've basically got 5 tug-of-wars going on, and in each of these tug-of-wars, you're playing different units, and either you can play land or air, or in some squares you can play sea or air. Air is like a wild card. And then in each of these squares, sometimes you get bonus effects that give you victory points overall, or lets you draw more units, or lets you destroy the enemy's units. And there's a bonus win condition that if you destroy all of the enemy's units and they don't have anything to play, then you win. Alternatively, the more likely way is that by winning some of these fields of operations, as they're called, in different parts of the world, you will score a whole bunch of victory points, and then eventually someone will get to 25 victory points, because you might be winning in one and losing in another, and you're just trying to push forward the ones that you're winning in before they push forward the ones that are winning in. It is actually quite interesting. There's a good amount of luck. There's a lot of chit drawing from the bag. You probably go for like less than half the tiles. So there's loads of luck, but it was great fun, and I'm looking forward to playing it again.
Nice. That's great.
So yeah, CD says, I'm sure it's obvious if it's doodled on from the outside. And
it's not very often you get to doodle letters in mail.
At this point, I invite everyone to ask anything they would like. And it's time, as we all know, for Questionably Quick Questions. It is the next section. It's not an interrogation. It's just a Questionably Quick Question section. Questionably Quick Questions. And whilst people might be pondering what questions they would like to ask, I would like to ask you, what is a brilliant thing? Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? I mean, could we talk about Kickstarters? Why are Kickstarters brilliant? Why did we even do it? Why bother with a Kickstarter? I mean, really, I did have the money. I could have, I guess this ties into the first reason. Like, I could have just printed a couple of hundred and then sold them somehow. But yeah, I've talked a lot, so please tell us why Kickstarters are brilliant.
I think it's great for indie designers to get more publicity and also the support by their audiences, and also, you know, getting new audience while on a platform like Kickstarter. It's great because it gives less front cost, but obviously there's a lot of effort and work that goes into creating a game, and it gets to build up to this sort of momentum of launching it, and then you're finishing in a wrap and you're like 50% done with the whole thing, because obviously then you have to do fulfillment, and just knowing that there's people who believe in what you're doing can help so much on like self-esteem and, you know, going into creating more games later.
So you touched upon a lot of stuff there. You touched upon the connection to the audience. You touched upon the growing of the thing, because a good Kickstarter should definitely be like this big party. And I think that we were really, I don't want to say lucky, because luck definitely had a lot to do with it. And I don't want to say, oh, look at us, we are amazing. Because, yeah, we are brilliant. But that's just a small part of the reason why it was successful. Because for sure, Board Game Trading and Chat UK definitely helped, and parts of that Facebook group, Chris and Leanne and moderators saying, yes, this is a great game, definitely check it out. And you talked about the cash flow, because, yeah, I would have had the cash for sure to print. I can print 50 copies easily when it's a tiny thing like that, but could I have afforded to print 1,000? I mean, yes. It's not like I couldn't have done it, but if I printed 1,000 and then I didn't sell it straight away, that would have meant that I couldn't do anything else for a long while. And as you say, like the emotions, that matters so much. And like as I'm doing it, and then I'm like, oh, these people actually care, and then having that celebration, and then people are all getting the thing at the same time. And yeah, sure, I could run a pre-launch thing elsewhere on another website. I mean, ultimately, it's interesting. I talked about why is Kickstarter brilliant rather than why is crowdfunding brilliant. And the reason that Kickstarter is brilliant rather than doing it on my own website is that it kind of does a lot of the technical stuff for me. And if I want to say, hey, here's the print and play edition, I only want backers to see this, I can make a backer only update and all the backers see it. That's amazing. And then I've got the spreadsheet, and Chris is able to export that, and it means that I don't have, if I'm sending out everything at once, I mean, sending out 78 things in a day, I can do that. I'm like, okay, I've got lots of stuff to send, I send it out. But then if it's like, oh, I've got this much, and then it drags out over a year, that would be a little bit more annoying. And the other thing that you didn't mention, which I think it's worth mentioning, is gauging the demand. Because again, I ended up printing 1,000 copies because there were 550 copies spoken for as of the Kickstarter. And as I said, I've not been selling anything, but I've already had like quite a few people saying, oh, I really want to buy this. How can I get this? And then, you know, we saw, and so gauging that demand, and like just it becomes this big thing. And we'll talk about why it was good for us later on. But CD wants to talk about great pumpkin pie recipe in a dish magazine. I go back to it by default anytime I want to do pumpkin pie. It's beautiful. What recipes do you often go back to? Bringing us back to the questions. I like that. So, questionably quick question number one. What's your favorite recipe? Do you have a go-to recipe, Dina?
I have my own recipe book, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I used to be a cooking and baking blogger, an influencer in Norway.
I knew you were a nail varnish blogger, but not a cooking and baking blogger.
Before there was nail polish, there was food.
Okay.
And I used
to have your kind of roots. We need to have a getting to know Dina at some point. But so it started off food, then nail polish, then board games.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's your life summarized in 6 words.
Well, at least the online presence of my life, yeah. And I have quite a lot of recipes on there. There's obviously some that I really, really love, and some that are more like depression friendly, because I helped make a cooking book for the university that I was at and while attending for students, because a lot of the people were there just sort of got their own place and didn't quite know how to start cooking for themselves. And one of the recipes that I made that I've seen resurface recently is a noodle lasagna, which is basically like a one-pot lasagna slash noodle dish where you're using like tomato and vegetable sauce in a pot. You're just taking the dried noodles from the shop in a pan, sauce on top, a little bit of cheese, and then in the oven, and 15 minutes, and it's delicious. And it's great when you're struggling with just eating, or if you're having a depression and you just need something quick that is also rich and filling and can help boost your mood, because obviously tomatoes does that. And yeah, so it was really fun when I saw it on TikTok, and I was like, hey, wait, I made that recipe nearly 20 years ago.
And if people want to find your old blogs, are they still up somewhere?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, I actually took it down.
Oh, wait. If you give a blonde a kitchen, is that you?
No, Dina's Kitchen at blogger.com.
Okay, because I found your baking Pinterest.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do have a baking Pinterest. That's true. Yes, I did. As you can see here, I was really into truffles one year, and I made for the blog, I tried out 50 different truffle delights recipes to like nail down what is the best one. And you can see that my Pinterest has a lot of these, and I can say that all of them are really good. But the most important thing when it comes to making truffles like these for the holidays is to ensure that the room you're working in is cold. Like lock off your kitchen, open the windows, and start cooking, because it's going to get warm and it's going to ruin everything. If you have a cold room that you're working in, they get perfect. They harden much nicer, and the texture of it it becomes a foolproof recipe. And the only thing you need to do is just change the environment.
I'm going to let other people make the truffles. I'm going to just walk in the warmth.
Just eat them.
Yeah. And I have to admit, there's something about baking that I don't do much baking. I don't do much cooking of sweet things, because my issue is that I enjoy eating sweet things. Don't get me wrong. If someone brings, like if I see someone's got a cookie, like of course I want one of them. Like one of them is good. Hello, J. Folsgard. Lovely to see you. But yeah, I would rather go into a shop and say, I want just one of these truffles. Whereas if you're baking them yourself, you need to make a whole lot. And then maybe you give them away as gifts. But could I actually, once I've got them all in front of me, do I have the willpower to not eat them?
The nice thing about
I'm not sure
is that they are very rich, and you like eating 4, and then you're like, oh, that's too much.
I would eat them all. You don't know. Like honestly, I sometimes have issues with food. Like sometimes, even if I'm like, oh, I'm like feeling a bit queasy, but oh, that's so good, I'm just going to have one more. Oh, my stomach's so sore, but I'm just going to have one more. Oh, I feel like I'm going to vomit, but I'm having one more.
Oh, that's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I tend to cook relatively healthy things. My go-to thing. So recently, I did actually get a few boxes from HelloFresh, which is quite nice because you've got the recipes. I love tasting new things.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, what I really enjoy when people are coming over is making a bit of a stew. Going outside, and maybe I buy some aubergines or some onions and peppers. Peppers are the best bits, I find, like big bell peppers. Chop them up, maybe mushrooms, maybe courgettes, whatever's going on in the market that day, that morning. And this is not like the most fresh produce ever. This is, if anything, like the produce that, it's maybe starting to go off a bit and were £1 per bowl. Really cheap stuff. So as opposed to the shop where it's like £1 per aubergine, here it's like £1.50 for aubergines. And like it's Denya gets a whole bunch of stuff, puts it in a big pot, cuts it up, and lets it to stew with so much seasoning you can't even imagine. Like 1 or 2 bulbs of garlic, not just a clove, like a big chunk of ginger. Get it spicy, get like 1 chili pepper in there, and then maybe 4 tins of tomatoes, like chopped tomatoes, and then that should be enough for like 4, 5, 6, 8 people, depending on how much stuff I buy. The other thing I've done recently, if there's only 1 or 2, maybe 3 people coming over, is I buy a couple of packs of udon noodles and just buy a smaller amount of veg. And then 3 peppers and 1 thing from the local market, and all in the stir fry. So yeah.
Nice. And what sort of sauce do you prefer with your stir fries? Like I'm all about the teriyakis.
With the stir fry, I normally just put wee bits of seasoning and like wee bits of soy sauce and the oil and leave it at that, fairly dry.
All right, yeah.
But yeah,
like caramelizing and soy sauce,
like
and
when you've
brown
got
sugar,
pepper or the onions, like that kind of dribbles its juices elsewhere. So
yeah, and then you get the ginger seeping in.
Firstly, I am going to say good night to CD. Thank you for popping in, and thanks again for backing the Kickstarter. And yes, I'm glad to hear it sounds so good. And just imagine if you were to come over one day for a gaming afternoon, that is the kind of thing that you would experience. Yeah, and when I'm in my new place, I will be able to put you up for maybe a couple of nights.
Nice. So, it's an offer now.
I'm just kind of tempting everyone over to say, hey, come to my place and play games.
Eat food with me, but we're also going to play games.
Shall we get to the main topic at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Main topic. A post-mortem of a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. Kickstarter. So, shall we start off by talking about what our goals were and what our expectations were?
Yeah, so let's start with the baseline. So we were doing a 1-month pre-launch, right? And we were doing a 3-day campaign. That is the base, so that people know. And the game.
And the reason that I originally wanted to do a 3-day campaign is because there was a small market stall in London, and I was hoping to have games in my possession to take to that small market stall, so that I could say to people, hey, if you want to grab it from me here. And also I will be able to sell it here, because it seems like the kind of game it was really easy to sell at UK Games Expo. And I thought, yeah, this is a kind of game that it might sell well with people who don't generally play games.
Yeah.
I will ruin the surprise and say, yeah, we didn't quite manage to make it there because of poor health of the person printing, but we'll explore that point later. So we wanted to do a quick campaign so that I could sell it afterwards. We wanted to keep people's interest, and we wanted to build up and have a good number. And so let's talk about some decisions that we made, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the first decisions I made was because we wanted to kind of stay out of the usual sort of feed content on Instagram, was that I wanted to run it solely on stories, because it's something that is there for a short amount of time, and it's a nice thing to sort of go back to and look at. And also we ran really heavily on Facebook groups, and then direct people into the page, and also our own group.
I mean, of course, there was a little bit of Kickstarter related posts on Instagram. You have to do that, but I didn't want to do more than one every couple of days, and so just because that's my regular posting rate to do, whereas the stories, they're kind of a bit more hidden, whereas with the posts it kind of feels, I mean, maybe this is bad personal interpretation, but it does feel like I want to do a little bit more work, make sure that those main posts are saying something a little bit more interesting, and be like, yeah, I'm proud to have this, and if someone looks back at all my posts in a year or whatever, it'll be, oh yeah, this is lovely, not just oh yeah, there were like 2 or 3 posts a day at this point where Bez was asking people their opinions about these wee whimsical creatures. And it tied in perfectly, because I did want to remove 16 of the original creatures, partially to make it valid for Kickstarter, because on Kickstarter it does have to be something new. And so I said, yes, this is going to be a second edition. I am going to take away the 16 creatures that people prefer the least, and then I'm going to replace it with 60 new creatures. And then if people want, a bunch of them were inspired by other people, some of them were inspired by the Big Cuck mods, and yeah, I think that basically covered 90% of that remaining 16. Is there anything else to say there? No, but like, yeah, just having that, which do you prefer? This is the winner, and this one that people preferred, the other one will not be there anymore. That was a nice thing. So I'd already done a bit of, okay, on Facebook, which one of these is your favorite on different groups? And then I had tallied all those numbers, spent a few hours saying, oh yeah, okay, this one got 18 votes, this one got 0. Like, there was a big tail, like these ones were people's favorites, and then like a whole chunk that got like 0 or 1 votes. And so we had to work through those and do a kind of, yeah, battle royale, so to speak, with them.
It was. And, you know, we had this massive spreadsheet where like these two are going up against each other, and we numbered each and every single one of the creatures. And it was obviously quite a lot happening on the background that people didn't get to see, and us tracking all the votes on the different platforms. It was, you know, it was more time for us to spend during the campaign on just managing these kind of things, but also it was great to just see like the ones that I like might not have ended up in the game, because the votes are what they are. And I thought that was really cool.
And I think we did it over 4 platforms. So every day, in theory, although some of the days were a bit late and I had to catch up at some points, but there was one post on Instagram asking which one people preferred. There was one post on Twitter asking people which one they preferred, which generally that one got the most interaction. I guess because I've got quite a few more followers on Twitter. And there was one post on the Facebook group, a game about wee whimsical creatures, and trying to identify them after someone makes, oh no, the public group is actually, I'm going to show it, a game about wee whimsical creatures ... and other busy budget bags. And then the 4th group was just a Facebook group that was chosen differently each day. So it would be, we would try to cycle through 7 different Facebook groups each week and make sure that we're not posting in anything too often. And yeah, but which one do you prefer? And then tally up the votes and see, okay, people on Twitter prefer this one, but everywhere else people prefer the other one. And if it's like, and it was interesting, quite often there was a clear, very clear consensus.
Yeah, and I thought that was great. And also like how we were doing it, like the reasoning behind the groups that we were picking. Like I'm a member of 50 different Facebook groups, and it was really looking at like what is the engagement rating of each of these groups, and do we have a presence in these groups already? Like will they recognize us when we're posting? And And there was, we did the work in picking them, and I think that really showed in the engagement we got on the different Facebook groups too.
And it was literally a case of which one should remain in the game, and would you prefer this one on the left, or would you prefer this one on the right? And as I was doing that, we also got a bunch of extra feedback. Some people saying, hey, make sure that you have these kinds of mouth shapes. And so we did get bonus feedback, which if I were to do a 3rd edition, yeah, I feel like there's got to be at this point some difference between the 3rd edition or technically, yeah, the 2nd edition EU printing was slightly different to the 2nd edition UK printing because of card. But at some point there might be one with the same creatures, but it's all done in color. But if at some point I wanted to do a large number of other creatures, I would definitely make more varied mouth shapes and really be thinking about them and really be thinking a little bit more in different ways about how their bodies and expression and body posture suggest something. Like have in my original lookup table, essentially it was how many eyes does it have, how many mouths does it have, what size of mouth, what style of mouth, and then the styles of mouth are like big, toothy, screaming, happy, sad. And then it was like how many the arms would be like lots of arms, wings and tentacles, and then it would have like different things for the hands or legs, and one of them was none for both of those things. And so I would just come up with all these random things. But I think if I were to do it next time, I would add in some randomization, or maybe even some, okay, the first 16 are all going to be really sad. The next 16 are all going to be really happy. And then the next 16 are going to be a bit apprehensive. The next 16 are going to be closed mouth and whispering. And like, I don't know, within that kind of, yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. As you say, Kickstarter interacting with the community, and this very much felt like a continuation of that.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously already now we have one assumption that we have come up with, which is one of the things that you do in the post-mortem. And the assumption that you mentioned was that your Twitter polls did better than on the other platforms. And that is obviously something we can check. Okay,
so I should have a look.
Yeah, because now we've mentioned the assumption. So now we got to prove it, whether or not it was true.
So it starts on September. So if I go backwards, it's early in August. So what's the first number is the impressions. The second number is the engagements. And tell us what that means.
Okay, so the impressions is how much exposure did the post get? How many people saw it on their feeds? And obviously the engagement is the likes and comments on the particular post. And then based on that, we get a percentage score for how well it did, which is called the engagement rating. So you can see this one got 959 in impressions, which is the amount of people that it was exposed to and had it on their feed showing. And then there is detail expand because it is quite long. So it is like show more, people have to, and then we know how many did that and how many replies and how many likes that we had for this.
And going back, it does seem like, yeah, there we go. To one more than 1,000 for these, where it's like, which creature would you rather make the sounds of? Which one of these do you prefer? Which two creatures should stay? 1,547 engagements. And so this does seem very good.
Yeah. So we have a range between 2.3 as the lowest in engagement rating and up to a 3.1 for these polls.
Here we go. mean, here's a poll 7.9.
Which is, yeah, I'm planning a Kickstarter for the second edition.
And so how do I open that? So this was what that was, trying to work out what to keep. And yes, let me know if you have any favorites. This was when it all started, when I started tallying up all the numbers, and I got Chris to number them so that people could say, oh yes, these are my favorites on these numbers.
So the difference here is that this post had what, like 4 images in it, while as the other ones had 2 images. And it also mentions Kickstarter, while as the other ones were like pick between one or this one. So that can also like explain a little bit why the other one got more engagement than the other one. People would have to scroll through the images, which is, you know, engaging in itself, while as the 2 you can kind of quite easily pick up on what it is, and then you can cast your vote.
And it's quite amazing to me to see that, yeah, this was shown to 3,000 people, although I guess it could have been shown to 1,000 people 3 times potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
But yeah, just the amount of retweets and shares that it gets, and that shows me that I've managed to build up a good amount of social capital on Twitter, which I am really grateful for. Just to say, yes, I believe that that's partially due to what I've managed to do over the past 5 years, because yeah, my first Kickstarter was now more than 7 years ago, and I have been, I like to think, working kind of hard to try and make good stuff, but then at the same time, people have responded to that. People have supported me. People have forgiven me when I've been a bit late with stuff or done stuff in an imperfect way. And people, when I'm saying, hey, this is a new thing, and then people get on board with that. And that is, yeah, really nice. That's even when it's, yeah, this is a poll, see the next tweet for the picture, but there's a lot of people
who clicked on see next, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so why can't I see just the actual there we go. Oh no, that's not the thing. Sorry about that. This one. There we go. And yeah, so we had 27 votes, and this is quite typical. That generally it was like a 60-30 split. So it was like some people loved both of them, but there was, and so now comes time to firstly stretch, given that the robot is telling us we should stretch, and that's basically my past self talking to my future self. And I did do some yoga this morning. I'm not going to undo all of that, but Dina helped me to get into the Instagram, and now it has reset. So do you want to tell us other things? Feed us information, Dina.
Feed me information. I don't know, what am I gonna say? I thought this was a lot of fun. Like, what I did is that we used on Instagram, since we're opening now, we used something called Storito to schedule and pre-make a lot of our posts and just have them roll out nicely so that we didn't have to do so much management. And right now, that is the best way that I've found in order to just pre-schedule and create stories for Instagram. And we lost this. So I got all the creatures in PNG files, and I sat down with Canva and Photoshop and created a bunch of different posts that we could use on Instagram stories. I am all by myself. Let's take this over. I'm still on. I just took over the show. Well, we were kind of expecting on Instagram, on stories, that we would get somewhere between 15 to like 30 people seeing it regularly. And we're now going to find out if that was actually true and how this sort of amplified the platform when we were doing the feed post. Because the thing when you're using multiple tools.
Oh wait, did I just come back and now
You
Dina's internet? Oops, no, my internet has messed up.
You're back, Bez. Yeah, so Instagram really likes it when people use multiple different parts of their platform. So if you're using stories and you make occasionally feed posts, everything is kind of boosting the others. So we make a feed post and we make a bunch of stories, and then this is going to help in order to go into the next one, which we used some video as well to share so that everything would be as engaging as possible and have people, watch it, rewatch, and also make it as easy as possible for people to do votes. So we use the sticker functions that you can do in Storitos, which is basically putting up the polls and have everything neatly organized before you launch it. And here we have Double Bez for a little moment, and welcome back, Bez.
Thank you very much.
Are you able now to show us how the stories went on Instagram? Explain how we did it and why we did it the way we did. So
scrolling halfway down, it seems that most of my stories were in the 74 range. When it goes to the reach, the very best was 152 and then 137.
And that is great when it comes to, like, we were expecting sort of like our benchmark going into this was that we would have 30 seeing each post, and then getting up to 70 just shows just how powerful this was as a tool for us during the campaign.
It felt like, because I had a lot of creatures, essentially a lot of content, and Jay Folsgaard says, what is that reach? What is that number exactly?
Yeah, so reach is basically individual accounts that it has been hitting. So it's not like impressions on Twitter, which is just how many times it was shown in a feed, but it's specifically like unique accounts and people who were, opening it.
And the thing about stories is that you need to actually click and actively be present. So I saw someone at UK Games Expo this year who seems to be a big deal on Instagram, and it was interesting. I said, oh, do you actually look at everything on Instagram because you're following so many people? They said, oh yeah, sometimes I scroll and then I share some love. And the way they were doing it without even taking in anything, if you know what I mean. Whereas I tell people that if I follow you, probably at some point I'll unfollow you on Instagram, because I do like the way I personally use Instagram is I look at literally everyone's post. And but then the people who are blasé about it's also just some scroll, like, and whereas with the stories it feels a bit more like people have to make that conscious choice. Am I right? Like people who are there are a little bit more emotionally engaged.
Yeah, and they have to, it's more like a commitment to go into stories. And the more people go into your stories, the higher up they're showing in your feed on Instagram on the stories. So say during the campaign, I had Bez on the first row of like, okay, you probably want to check what's next on Bez because she shared another stories. And I would constantly get, it would always be at the front row. So we're making sure.
Oh, so it's the number of other people watching determines the left to right order at the top.
Yeah, and also like your engagement data. So if I opened it once, it would automatically go first if I didn't check any other people's stories for longer than I spent looking at your stories. So it becomes quite tailored specifically to each of the individuals and that person who is sharing their audience. So the more audience engagement you're getting, the higher ranking, and also for each of the people who aren't already in your audience, you get discovery rates for other people. So like there's always a suggestion. So if someone empties their story and they're not following you, but they're following accounts that are following you, you would end up there.
Oh my gosh, I've just realized how long we've been talking about this.
Yeah.
Like I was going to say, let's finish talking about what we've done, and then let's talk about what was good, and then let's talk about what was bad in whichever order. Can we still do that? Can we go for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so if that seems like reasonable order. So the stuff that we've done, we did the Instagram stories. We really focused on which of these creatures should be taken out. This is like a fun way to engage people. And I even had, from Osprey, I've forgotten their name, saying, hey, this is a great way to drive community engagement for organic growth. Organic growth, for those who don't know, is basically unpaid marketing, organic marketing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it happens with other people. It doesn't mean that it happens without your input. It means that you spend still your own time and attention and love on it. But we did, that was our primary thing. The secondary thing I think that is worth mentioning is KCON, when I went there and kind of pushing things on board game trading and Chat UK. I think the third thing, it almost feels like maybe we should just talk about the pre-marketing in one episode and talk about the campaign in another episode. But then the other thing we did was like the interviews. We said, okay, we'll have this interview, this interview, this interview. And then during the campaign, some decisions that we made, I had already decided this is going to be £5. This is going to be £3 postage, because in the UK, it costs about £2. Frankly, if I charged £2 for postage, it would barely have covered the actual Royal Mail's price. But beyond that, I've gotten to the point where I want to say, yes, actually, each postage does incur a bit of work. I am going to be doing some of it myself. I'm going to be paying Chris to do some of it. I'm paying now a housemate to help with a wee bit of it. But whether I'm paying someone else or whether it's my own time, it is worth something. And so I think it's fair to say, yes, I'm going to add on 50p for the postage, essentially. And then that way, yeah, if once you get it. And the other decision that I made was to have a £1 print and play level. I was imagining going into this, just the assumptions, I imagined that we would have maybe 200 people, and I wish that I'd written this down so that I could be sure that this is what my past self thought. But I thought this might be my first Kickstarter with over 1,000 people, because I thought that what I want to do is make £1 pledge level a no-brainer. Sending it outside the UK is too much hassle. It's too much cost. I'm just not going to go there. I'm going to keep it simple. And so £1. The other thing that I decided was stretch goals. Every 100 copies done, sold, and every 100 backers. And the two were non-dependent. So every 100 backers, there was a new digital stretch goal that people could vote on. Every 100 copies sold, there was a new physical stretch goal that people could vote on, whether they wanted a little sticker or whether they wanted a previous sticker to be upgraded to be a nice sticker, or whether they wanted a compliment card or whatever. And by the end, the digital backers, they already got the game, they already got the colouring in sheets. They will be getting a whole new game about drawing creatures, complimenting the creatures, and then complimenting the compliments. They will be getting 16 brand new extra creatures, and I can't remember what else, but I'll have a look and make sure that everything is fully done by the end, by some point.
Yeah, According to my notes from the first meeting that we had while talking about the whimsicals, and we were talking about the whimsical battles, you were estimating around 250. I was saying at least 350 because I'm helping out, and that is what I usually like. That is my benchmark for what I bring in, and we were saying that based on like the algorithmic of utilizing Instagram, I was estimating about 400 backers. According to my notes here, saying utilize growth hacking methods and estimate 400. And you were saying I would love it to get into the categorical numbers of 600 to 700 backers. That's what it says here. So that was my frame.
And then I think it was after that we started discussing, okay, how much should a print and play be? And deciding, yeah, it makes sense to just keep it low. And so this is how it did. In the end, according to this, 1,152 is in the pot for shipping, and 422 backed for a digital copy, and then 375 backed for basically a game, and 9 people backed 50 quid to help create a new creature, and they will be getting some custom art. There were 157 extra copies sold via add-ons. There were 58 custom colorings in. There were 26 custom colorings in with more red. And yeah, that's the end of the interesting data here.
So you can see that we not just, nailed my estimates, which were, pretty low compared to what we ended up with. It just shows that this sort of growth hacking of Instagram really does work for the game and for the campaign that we ran, which I'm super excited about, because basically I got to prove one of my greatest ideas that I had earlier this year was if we only did this thing, it could work. And here I got the opportunity to not only show that it does work, but that it can do incredibly well too. So I'm obviously super excited about that, because I got to be hey, I was right. And
yeah, it's always nice to be right.
For me. Yeah.
I feel like there's, I think it's worth taking a step back, and if someone asked me right now, am I allowed to answer the question, why did it do well? And okay, so I think, without being conceited, I do think that it is a unique game. I don't think it's truly unique. I'm sure that someone else has made something like that, but I'm not aware of any game that's really about making noises and recognizing noises. And yes, there's some similarities to Dixit and a lot of other party games, but the focus on you're making a weird noise, can you identify it? Can you match a weird noise to that? I mean, the closest I can really think of is Matthew Dunstan's recent Cosmos game, which is app-driven, and then you hear noises and they've got to match them to objects, but that's totally different. This is just a joyous thing. And I think that UK Games Expo, 50 copies sold by 9:50 a.m. on Saturday showed me that, yeah, it is a really good game. And again, I feel like it feels like, and Jay Folsgaard says it's a good, silly game. Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. It is a silly thing. At conventions, it does well. Now, would that translate to Kickstarter? I didn't actually even have a Kickstarter video, which I should have done, but the reasons that it did well. Firstly, the game itself. It makes noises, it's exciting, it tells you what it is. Secondly, I think we can't underestimate the name, because at a certain point, and I now have a new rule for my demonstrators that they have to know the names of the games, and I don't even have to think of that rule, but it's always an implicit rule, isn't it? Like if someone says, oh, do you want to play the Arnak? Would you like to... I mean, it's kind of better for publicity if people say the full name, like, would you like to play The Lost Ruins of Arnak? And the same way, I wouldn't like someone say, hey, would you like to play a game about wee whimsical creatures? I would like to say to people, hey, would you like to play a game about wee whimsical creatures and try to identify them after someone makes noises? And then at that point, you've already told them everything they need to know.
Yeah, the premise is already there, and it sells, and it shows. And obviously here also we had a print and play, which is fantastic. I know a lot of designers who are a little bit worried and anxious about putting up like limited geographic releases for games, and especially now with the UK being as it is. And I think we just proved them that you don't have to be as worried about this as you are. There's a market for picking up print and plays. It's easy to pick up a print and play, and also on Kickstarter they can still do well, even if there is, you know, limitations on the geographic market. They do it for the US all the time. Why shouldn't we be able to do the same in the EU? And we just did. As like one of the first.
I think that quickly, yeah, going back to the name, I think that that's definitely a thing that we can and should repeat for our older Bessie budget bags. I think it has to be a game about, and then tell you exactly what the game is about. So that will be the name from now on. It's a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. That's what tells you what the game's about. And then you're like, okay, you're like, well, are turnips good? Are turnips bad? Well, your turnips are good, but if you get more than 5 of them, you lose instantly. So, but print and play, yes, let's talk about the print and play, because I was doing that for £1, which I think is something that's, again, I would like to repeat this for all future Bessie budget bags. It is only £1 per person, but that's 422 people. As you can maybe see, I've highlighted there at the top. It's on the top line. And 422, that's a sizable amount of cash to get. And not only that £422, but also minus the 10% that Kickstarter takes, basically. Minus, like, but not only that, but yes, some people put in a little bit extra because they were like, oh, I want to support Bez, but mainly the other really good thing is that it helps the Kickstarter algorithm, right?
Absolutely. And they get something for helping your algorithm too. And, you know, we got the Kickstarter Project Love badge so quick, and it just shows that, you know, this combination of having a physical game with the limitations and, you know, having a very open print and play, and we were also willing to change how we were giving the layout to people so that they could, you know, use the trainers that they have available. Because there's differences, optimizing it for print run, so for those who are wanting to take it to a print shop, and we were helping people with that. So, you know, we worked for those 422 backers too. We've given them extra value.
With just saying everyone who backs for £1 gets it makes it so much easier, because then at that point, you don't have to message individual backers. You can do it as a backer only update. And honest, like, there was part of my mind that thought, oh, should it be £2? No, just make it £1, because at £1 it's like, whoa, it's £1. And like, that's hopefully what I'm trying to inspire in people, that in future, once this Kickstarter is done, I hope that people will feel, wow, I got so much value from that. Yes, absolutely, I need to back the next thing. And my fingers crossed is that that will then breed more success, because I want to make sure that I treat these backers well and say, yeah, this is good stuff. And not only do you get this, but also once I've worked out the stuff about the game about drawing creatures, complimenting the drawings, and then complimenting the compliments, which I'm so happy with that game. And I played it on Monday with McCall, and, you know, McCall was having a rubbish day, but every time I played it with anyone, we all end up smiling at the end, because it just feels so good to compliment everything.
It's absolutely wholesome, yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know if that will be a physical printed game at any point, I don't know. But, yeah, why not? I could easily print 50 copies and see how it does at conventions. But yeah, the other thing is, yeah, like £2 versus £1. It's simple for me. It feels good for everyone else. Okay, so that's what we decided. Let's talk very quickly, unless you want to talk anything. What would we want to do again? What went right?
Yeah. So obviously, utilizing growth hacking methods for Instagram and just hacking the algorithm anywhere you go is definitely something we will keep doing.
So you keep talking about growth hacking, but what exactly does that mean?
Okay, so it's looking at where we are at the moment and looking at how can we optimize our presence on each of the different platforms. Usually growth hacking also involves quite a lot of ad spend, but I wanted to focus, because I absolutely love organic growth, and I think that's the strength of this brand too. So I'm only utilizing it for optimizing our platforms for where we are and the audience that we can reach on them.
Sorry, didn't mean to get rid of that. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. I think that the question in my mind is, could we replicate it in the same way? Because, yeah, that one was so natural. It's like, these are creatures. It's easy to say, I prefer this creature to that creature. It's easy to click a button to say, I prefer this one. And when it's, okay, what kind of compliments do you prefer? Or which of these facial features is your favorite? It's like a game about grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. You can't forget to quickly, because you have to do it quickly. But anyway, those creatures are mathematically created, so there's exactly a bunch of different permutations, and it adds up to exactly 36, and that's really important for the maths of the game. It is a party game, but they're just like Double. There's hardcore maths behind it, if you know what I mean. And so I can't be in a position to say, which of these do you prefer? And I'm going to... It doesn't quite work. I could do like, oh, here's a bunch of turnips. I need to have like 15 turnips. Which of these turnips? But then that's asking people very similar turnips. That's not exciting. So can we even replicate that? Because the polls were so good.
So yes, we can replicate it, but the replication has to look different. Obviously, it's fitting with with each of the games. It's fitting the brand. So while this one did have a natural selection that needed to happen both inside the game and in the pre-launch,
and it was genuinely for my own information.
Yeah. And it was absolutely vital that people participate in order to get the feel of the game. So in the compliments, I would imagine we probably would do something like a complimentary battle, where you could set up people as in a little bit like a Victorian duel, and then we could just battle out with compliments, and we could get streamers to just join us in, or influencers, and just have this sort of as a thing of okay, we're gonna spend a couple of minutes and we'll do a complimentary battle. And
or on Twitter saying, hey, check out this person, hit them with your biggest compliment.
Yeah, and
I love that.
That is, something that is vital to the game and the experience of the game, and it's creating the feeling and the pathos of it outside of them actually having the game. So we're wanting them to play the game before they actually get it, in order to opt in for the Kickstarter. And I think that's what I would do for this one. At the top of my head, this is what I'm thinking.
But that makes sense. I mean, it does have to be, as you've said multiple times yourself, it has to be genuine, because I can't be saying, oh, which of these things should be in the game if...
That doesn't change anything.
Yeah, there I had to remove 16 of the cards for card count reasons to add 16 new things. But, so yeah, that is something that absolutely will try to replicate. It went well. The 3-day thing with 1 month, I feel like the 1 month actually was possibly good enough. Like, it was a really tight timeline, but it felt like it works really well.
Mm-hmm. And it was also, you know, like we were spending a lot of time during that month, and it did take, you know, a lot of mental workload. And I remember you were saying, like, I would like a break in the middle of it.
Because I had to do one post every single, actually 2 posts every single day on Instagram, and also the post on the Twitter and the Facebook and the other Facebook group.
Yes. So it was a lot. And I think with that in mind, we would probably do like a month and a half pre-launch just to have baked in breaks so that we're not exhausting the team, because that is important. I think that would be quite vital, actually, when it comes to replicating it, and what could we do, what would we do again, and what would we probably like change a little bit more time. But still on the, you know, super dense roll up, print and play, a low price point was a big seller here.
For sure. The 3-day campaign, I really appreciated being able to put basically all my energy into it, because it was only 3 days, and so I could 100% give all my energy to it, safe in the knowledge that I wouldn't have to worry about it for very long. So it wasn't like I was going to burn out by the end, because it was such a short thing. By the end of the first day, Kickstarter was already counting down the hours. It was amazing to see. I do think that despite that, though, there is the question, should we have at least done more than a week, like 9 days? Because there's so many things that come out weekly. And I saw on the final day, on the Friday, that someone said, hey, here, some with like many thousands of Twitter followers said, hey, this game is worth checking out. And then I might have gotten 2 extra backers, but there was literally about 2 hours to go. And so at that point, if there was another week to go, maybe I would have gotten a bit more stuff.
Yeah. I did recommend us doing a 9-day campaign, because I've run a 9-day campaign before, and that really worked because it gave us kind of like 1 day break in the middle. We're okay, like, whew, okay, breathe everyone, let's go again. And before the countdown started. I would obviously recommend that we do that, because obviously we can see here that, you know, it didn't plateau at all. Like we reached the funded, and it just kept going up and up. And I think definitely had we gone for an extra day, we would have continued to go up there, because we had such a great momentum. And as you're saying, a lot of these things in the gaming industry goes out weekly. So we were kind of reliant on everyone knowing about the game before we launched, and then either launching it right before we launched, or like during those first 2 days, and anything that happened after that was kind of lost. They couldn't come in and pledge. And I think we could have captured some of that. Because also when we're looking at like Bigger Cake or Tabletop Analytics, we were constantly getting, you know, there was an increase of backers on 2nd and 3rd day. And I feel like we might have lost some people on not having a 4th day.
I mean, I do see such a massive number on the first day. And I want to actually switch to KickTrack very quickly. Sorry. Because if you look at the difference in backers in terms of daily data, let's go here. And there's so many backers per day. 429 on the first day. And it's not like 2nd day or 3rd day or 4th day are bad. But it's really interesting, because normally the last day is an upturn. But here, the last day was the worst day, which is quite unique.
It follows the same curve as the longer campaigns. So basically, like, it was ebbing down because obviously we had the launch, and then it naturally sort of stops a little and everyone is just trailing in. But we never got to the actual looking at the countdown increase.
And yeah, does that mean that we were really successful at telling people, hey, back it's on day 1, and everyone was super excited to back on day 1? If we had another 7 days, I don't know what would have happened, but I think that it's worth doing.
Mhm.
J Full Scar says, I think I backed on the last day and I almost forgot. So the only downside potentially of having a 9-day campaign is that people don't feel that
The FOMO is less.
urgency. But then again, like that, honestly, the 3 days, that's like not a great thing to try to tap into. I don't want to be, oh, we need to drive ultimate FOMO. That's not good marketing. That's kind of manipulation, right? And so at that point, you need to kind of, I think, say, yeah, you do have a week, but back it early. If you back it early, it'll be really helpful for me. And please, I hope that you understand. Please back it on day one if you can. That will really help me with the algorithm.
And obviously for us to pick the 3 days, it was because of external reasons. And yes, 9 days is still very short. But it does allow for, that 1 day of retargeting and go like, okay, how is the campaign going? And then progress.
And I think with 9 days, yeah, it might have been a little bit more chilled. And there probably would have been like a good 4 days of, oh, I'm not doing much. And yeah, so that's something we would do differently. I'm going to bring back, so 3 days, and the fact that I didn't get the games for the market because of the poor health of the printer, it's just I think it's a reminder that you can't be banking on anyone 100%, and maybe it was a mistake to do that, especially in these days when people are potentially more likely to be hospitalized for a brief period of time for respiration, kind of related stuff. Yeah, so for those who don't know, I think Rob's happy for me to share there were COVID-related issues, but they're all better now. Thankfully, if it had been at the start of COVID, it might have been an issue because there were not enough hospital spaces. But thankfully, we're now in a position where there are enough hospital spaces and they were able to get the treatment that they needed and came out of it okay. And I did get the games just a few weeks later than expected. And so one thing also that I want to say about nothing to do with the marketing, I'm really proud of this. Batching it up into 100 backers. When I said, this is the first one, back this is the next one, back this. And I started off with 2 lots of them, partially because I didn't want to pollute the thing, if you know what I mean. And I was ready to make more as were needed. My thinking, okay, once one of them fills up, I'll make another one. So we'll always have at least 100 in reserve.
Yeah.
Now, it was like, okay, you'll get it in October. Okay, you'll get it in November. Okay, you'll get it in December. Okay, you'll get it in January, February. Okay, you'll get it in April. And then, as it happens, we are marginally ahead of stuff, although that's been slightly expedited by me having to focus on getting stuff out of this house because of my forthcoming move.
Yeah.
But and also everything exciting happening, which is kind of a different conversation about Kickstarter fulfillments, so I won't go there. So, but what else should we? That's the last thing that I feel we should do that again in future. Split it up into bunches of 100. That feels really good. And but what lesson should we learn?
What more? I think that the big takeaways from the campaign is definitely, we also did a stream a day where you were playing the game, so that helped. Definitely, I think. We could, I don't know, can we go into like Twitch analytics and see how much engagement you got for those particular days? Isn't that
no, because oh wait, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes,
so that could be interesting to see if it actually
had an uptick or anything. Oh, and do a quick side by side. One thing that I think, do you think we should do paid marketing next time?
That's a good question. I'm still on the fence because, as I've mentioned, you know, I absolutely adore organic marketing, and I think what I probably would have done was to boost one of the posts that we did to like stories, just to have a little bit, you know, like an increase right around launch time, but to still focus primarily on the organic reach because it fits the brand. It's what we are all about, like the human connection and interacting with our backers. And if we are doing a slightly longer campaign, I think we have more time to do those things as well without feeling exhausted or like overwhelmed by it, and we can do more good just by like boosting the launch itself.
I'm going to put, this is Twitch for August the 29th to September the 5th. So this Tuesday 31st is when we launched, and we had a live Twitch stream for the launch.
Yes,
and this is Friday where we had a live Twitch stream for the ending celebration. And so, as you can see, I don't have a lot of average viewers, but when you look at just number of live views, so that includes people who pop in for 1 minute and then head off again, that's a lot. So that's 61 people jumping in. That's enough to kind of get something really started. And then at the end, it did definitely feel, and yeah, if you also the amount of chat engagement,
this just
the amount
shows,
of minutes watched.
Works.
Let's see if there's any other stats that I could. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that's max unique viewers, maybe. Oh, there we go, unique viewers. You can see how many unique people viewed. So 41 people and 41 people both days. And yeah, if that's interesting to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And maximum, 11 maximum, 20 maximum. So it wasn't anything like when I had, I think my best stream by a massive margin was my 400th celebration stream when I I had like an average of 100 something people watching, and because basically they put me on the front page of Board Game Geek, and I had some really big people coming in, and I'd done a lot of work, so it was like an average of like 3 guests an hour or something, but like also some of my favorite people like Suzanne Sheldon and Eric Lang, you know, had their own hour just for them. So, but that was probably the best stream I've ever done, if I'm being honest. I need to get that back up on YouTube. But yeah, it comes down to that kind of effort results ratio. Look, if this was a lot of work for me, it might not be worth doing. But the truth is that for me, this is a lot easier in terms of energy than writing a Board Game Geek designer diary, which, by the way, I could have done and I didn't do. I was about 70% of the way through it, and I was at 3,000 words, and then I was thinking, okay, I've got to finish writing it, and then I've got to edit it down to something short enough that people will actually read it, and also put in all the images. And then I think at that point I kind of cut my losses. And Eric Martin has said, yes, if you want to do a future thing, then you absolutely can. But in future, that's the question, like, should I put more energy into that next time, do you think?
I mean, it's definitely something to try. I mean, yeah, I would put it on the try part. Usually the campaigns that I've been running has had a diary coming out after the Kickstarter or like during the Kickstarter. As a part
during
of an
seems like the best thing. But like, because it was a game that was previously published, that gave me the privilege to have a designer diary that would be on the front page of Board Game Geek, potentially. And so if I'd written it it wouldn't have been a designer diary just in the page of the game, but actually on the front page, which could have been really good free advertising in exchange for my content.
It's
the ultimate in content marketing, right? So yeah, I mean, it feels like that's something I should do differently next time. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we will try.
And yeah, is there anything else that we have to say? So
I think we covered the most important ones. I just went through the slides that I showed last time. What part did you love the most about the campaign?
Oh no, we haven't done this. I loved the amount of comments. I really enjoyed that. It's like I enjoyed having a relatively short period. I think that for me, 9 days would be pushing it, but it would be okay. Like to be okay, I am on there multiple times every day for 9 days. I'm basically focusing on this 100%. Especially if I didn't have an outstanding campaign, that would have felt okay. Like if Categorical were done and dusted and I didn't have, then I could have in good conscience said, yes, I can do whatever I want because I don't have any obligations to anyone. Yay for me. And so I am going to take 9 days and just work on this. And yes, I'll spend some time on myself. That's important to be healthy and wander around. But that was my favorite thing. Writing an update and actually having people comment on it, because that was the difference between having a Kickstarter campaign that had like 100 or 200 backers and one that has 800 backers, that you have a good number of people who are like, oh yes, I'm excited about this and excited about this, but also all the stretch goals, being able to say, oh, would you like coloring in sheets, or would you like a brand new game, but that kind of costs you 200? And I really enjoyed doing that because it felt like it was really a celebration, and I think that vibe was fantastic.
Yeah, you know, it's a party game, and we brought the party to Kickstarter, and it showed, you know, like the energy that we just kept up during the entire campaign. I definitely think this is one of my favorites too. It's just how much of like the party feel that we managed to put into every bit of content that we were making. You know, like I created these small little stories with like movable things and like fireworks and little confetti thing happening, and we were using the branding color of the red, and I love that, just sitting down and be like, okay, I get to make these super silly stories for you, and then like tiny little animations that I got to work on. And this was the first campaign where I made, you know, like so much pieces of like graphics, even though I'm not a graphic designer. I can make things for Instagram posts, and this, you know, I've really got to do that, and I added a little bit, you know, like a special touch to the Kickstarter page, and I just love that you noticed it and were like, hey, that's actually really cool. And I had sat there in Photoshop being like drawing, and I loved that was so cool.
Yeah, so now we need to talk about our least favorite parts for ourselves. I think I just want to preface this by saying that overall, I think it went really well. And this is me really struggling to think of something, but I think that the one thing, maybe it's just because you mentioned it earlier, yeah, I would have liked to have a day off. Scheduled days off to say not only, okay, you do this for an hour, but like, yeah, in reality, just when you've got an active social media campaign, even just catching up with comments takes a bit of time in the day. And like, I don't like how Instagram, if you don't look at the stories and someone mentions you and you don't look at it within like 18 hours or something, is it 24? Because I'm sure that like someone puts a story about me and it was like at 1 p.m. and then the next day I thought, okay, I'll reshare it like just before 1 p.m. so it stays up longer, because that would be nice. It was a really nice story, just saying that how much they were enjoying the L deck. And then I came to it and I was going to put it on my highlights even, and then it disappeared. That was annoying.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that you kind of need to be on like a couple of times a day just because of the way that it is. And so that's even without having anything scheduled. So I think that the maximum that things should be scheduled for going forwards is 6 days a week. If it's one person, I think that there's a small question of, should I ask someone else to get involved, like to do the actual posting for me? And that is a fair question. Like, or sure, for the LDEC, like when it comes to us doing the next one, like whatever the third typeface might be, whether that's couple, that might be something that we look into. Oh, can we have certain days when other people are doing it, some days when you or I are doing it, and kind of, but it does at the same time feel, I think that people respond to the fact that there are certain points where it's my name there, and even though there's other people clearly involved, and I'm clearly having the help of people like you, of not to mention like the printing and like people who play test it, but also Chris to get me to scan stuff in and do wee bits of graphics and all sorts of stuff. But like Layla is now doing the LDEC Twitter, but I think people do respond when it's like, yeah, Bez is responding here, and it's clearly Bez. And I think that that's a thing that we need to keep.
Yeah, I think so too. It is a personal brand, so that's why it is super important when the creator is participating.
And yeah, other than that, I can't really think of anything where it's like, this is my least favorite. Nothing comes to my mind. I feel like I should search for something else, but that might suggest that nothing was bad enough emotionally or to be worth mentioning.
Yeah. I would have really loved to be able to gather the team right before we went on Kickstarter, just to make sure that everyone knows their tasks, to ensure that we are on top of everything, just because I like to make sure that like everything is done and I don't have to go and ask, okay, did you do this? Or can I have this? And it's kind of already a little bit, later in the process. Like I was asking for the PNGs and I had a PDF that I was working on. So I had to kind of start cutting out, but then also Chris was cutting out the creatures, and then we kind of had a bit of a double work happening, which is unfortunate. But in the end, we managed to adjust, even though we didn't have as much team communication as I would have liked to see.
And I guess with now, actually, based on the success of this game, I told Chris, okay, at least for a few months, and hopefully for the foreseeable future, if I can get something out, and keep this momentum going, then Chris is now working for me 2 days a week. Currently, like in theory, like one day is marketing the LDEC and working on future stuff, and one day is kind of, okay, let's pack up stuff. But then after this, I do think that Chris's version of the LDEC is starting to take shape and looking quite nice. And with future Bezzy budget bags, it feels like there's a lot of stuff that could be done. But I think that the important thing is to keep the it's super accessible, right? It is designed to be financially accessible. It's designed that someone who wants it, if you've got a printer and you're ready to do a print and play, you can get it. I think that as we go forwards, there are going to have to be more systems put in place for the overall thing, which we'll talk about at a future date once all the shipping's been done. And potentially with Vagard coming on board, and it might be good to have maybe even a stream with Vagard to talk about that publicly. But because, international shipping, the fact that it costs like less than a half the price to ship from Poland to USA than it does from UK to USA. That's kind of...
It really does. It is insanities, yeah.
And I told like there was someone who backed it and then said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was the USA version. It was UK only. Can I pay you extra to get one?" And I said, "Okay, but I'll do yours after I've sent everything else out." What I would suggest is either you can pay me £10 extra, or you can pay me £2 extra and get it from Vanguard. And it will be exactly the same, except the cards are thinner and you won't get the compliments cards and stickers.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Oh, I'd rather pay you the £10 extra if that's okay." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." Firstly, I'm very flattered that according to this, the compliment cards and stickers, and I guess maybe my method of packing is worth
I mean,
£8.
your method of packing is legendary.
But the issue there is like when it goes international, there is less space to draw, and I just want to make that clear. And the space reduction is massive with those custom stickers. But even so, it's like, wow, we should kind of make sure that there are these little extra packs or something in there. Maybe it is worth having, if people resonate with these stickers and stuff so much. Yeah, I don't know but that's for down the line. I think at this point, I don't normally do it in this order, but let's start off with a recap and wrap up before we finish up. So we talked about the nature of the campaign. We talked about the short time span. We talked about the fact that the game was already printed. We talked about the fact that it was a 1 month lead up to a 3-day campaign. And Dina was all about the organic growth hacking, as Dina calls it, on Instagram. And there was a lot of stuff on Instagram, but based on the numbers that we saw on Twitter, you agreed that Twitter was more successful, but we can continue to grow the Instagram, and that's very much worth doing, as well as the Facebook thing. One thing that would be good for next time, I forgot to say this, have a specific Facebook group for each day. If you could put that into the plan, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Because for me, just kind of having that thought of, oh, when did I do this? How long has it been since I posted in this group? Should I post in this group? And having that tiny decision of which one to post in, and having that initial plan, even if like we were to work on it together, or I say, oh, actually, I should also post on this one group, so I can change it. But having that to start off with would be amazing. That would have definitely made it so much easier to me. But then we talked about me wanting more time, but more time would have been good because 9 days, it fits in with the things. That's something that we would like to change, but we're totally on board with the low price. The definitely worked well and we talked about having it in 100 batches of 100. People seem to resonate with that. People seemed engaged with all the new stuff that I was bringing up. The Twitch seemed to work well. The interviews seemed to work well. And yeah, it just feels like even the question of should we pay for marketing, like you said in the past that maybe we should do one paid ad on Instagram purely to get the clickable link there, which would have been nice. But that's the one thing where, okay, let's maybe try that next time now that we look at it and we're like, okay, potentially there's more of a budget. And
also, we wanted to define a baseline so that now we know that, on Instagram, we will get 70 to 170 views, which means that at that point it's actually worth having the swipe up and pay for that. But we needed to know the baseline, because if it was at the 30s, which is like the norm on Instagram stories when people start using them, it wouldn't have been.
That's a really good point. Yeah, kind of knowing. And whilst I am maybe a little bit nervous of, can we get something that ties in exactly? Dina seems super confident of, yes, we can get something for the next thing.
Of course, this is what I do. I do this for all the campaigns. I look at what they're doing, like specifically, like what is the audience going to want from this, and it's what I do. I think outside the boxes and I come up with these, crazy ideas, but they, as we can see, they
because
tend
this
to
one,
work
it
out.
was just so perfect. It was on a plate, and
It
I
was deliciously served, yeah.
But yeah, then we talked about, we both enjoyed the party atmosphere. I would have liked time off. And did we talk about what you didn't like? Sorry, you did, but I can't remember.
The lack of team communication during the
yes, communication. Yes, we should have more communication. And yes, because Chris is working more days a week, that could be easier. But also if we had more of a lead in, because if someone's working, 1 or 2, even 2 days a week, then they are going to have more opportunities to communicate if things can be done in a slightly slower way. So I think that is also something that next time, maybe let's take a couple of months to lead into it. And what I am genuinely thinking is, for the next one, maybe it's quite a nice idea to have the first printing be in black and white and then the second Kickstarter version be colored, because then that allows me to test games, which is the whole idea of the Bezzy budget bag, without putting too much work into it. And then but then people actually seem to really like the color and resonate with the color when I started putting it on Twitter, like the customized version. So it feels like I should color in things by default in future. Like, although I have seen 2 people coloring it in, which is amazing.
It is. I am loving it. And it does give, like for us who have kids at home, it does give them, a lateral way to just participate in the games that they have in the house. And this is something that games don't really usually allow for and have space for. And I think being able to provide my kid with this, like, we're going to customize it. It's going to be in the house for, for the rest of the years of your life. And you get to play it, and you can, maybe we'll do like you do 10 when you are this age, and then you'll do the next one, and then you can kind of see how also the drawings are progressing. It could be super fun.
Or it could be that you color in one thing every day, like maximum, and you're allowed to do, and then you actually, that could be quite fun if you write the game. If you write the date on it, and then you can sort of see how you progress, as you say, that could be quite fun. And then with future versions, maybe it should be that there's a colored in version, but if you want a black and white version, then you can get that also. I don't know. Anyway, that's, the production and all that. We'll talk about that down the line. It has been a great conversation. And thank you so much. Incredibly briefly, over to what are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. If anyone wants to share what they're up to, I have to skedaddle. I have to be going and chatting to Chris and getting stuff posted, and another 68 things to the post office. And hopefully everyone who, we are already moving to the people who were expecting their stuff in December, which is great stuff. So we are officially starting to be early for some people. Some of the October stuff arrived, like, technically, I think, like, I'm sure that some of it must have arrived like 2 or 3 days after October, but I'm still very proud of how it's gone. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. And then I've got to do some tidying, some gosh darn tidying, because this room is very messy. You can't see it, so I'm going to show it to you. This is the mountain of boxes. This is not boxes that are nicely stacked. This is just a mountain of boxes that has been coming up for about a few years. Yeah. Not good.
Ever increasing.
Mess. I'm sorry.
It's the human experience.
J Fool's Guard says, have you thought about selling the black and white version on Etsy? Maybe selling the black and white version on Etsy and the color version on Kickstarter. That's an interesting idea. I hadn't considered Etsy as a platform. I will now. Thank you for that input. I know Jessica Mederingham has gone on to Etsy. Maybe I should have Jess on for another chat about Etsy.
Yes, maybe that's a good possibility. I also have a couple of clients who are considering Etsy, so we would definitely tune in for that. Cool.
I will ask maybe early next year, once Jess is past the holiday season, for the 6th season of the show. But it's been a lovely chat. Thank you very much. If you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez everywhere. Twitter.com/StuffBez, Instagram.com/StuffBez, Twitch and YouTube and Facebook.com/ThingsByBez, because back in the day, Facebook didn't let you have F and B next to each other. If you want to check out my future streams, I am streaming at 10 a.m. UK time every day. I'm sometimes doing an extra stream on Tuesday. Next Thursday, I think, is my next one with a guest, which is about the Jane Killick, the author of the Terraforming Mars book. So, are you excited by Terraforming Mars?
I think it's so much fun.
So, have you read the book?
No, not yet. I've not found the time. I mean, I've had, since we launched this Kickstarter, I've had every single week a new launch of a Kickstarter, and I am having the first, like, at the end now. So I have one ending today, and then next week, and then next week, but also like in 2 weeks. So I have a full week off of having a launch of a Kickstarter before I have another launch of a Kickstarter. So yes, I have basically been launching something every single week since we did this. So I'm looking forward to have it a Tuesday where I can actually just go on Kickstarter and look at games that are coming out without having to be launching something. So maybe then I can start reading books again.
Yeah, sometimes it's important to make space and time for yourself. I am going to make a point of taking the time, because it's work and research. I have to read a book before Jane comes on so I can ask meaningful questions.
Absolutely,
but yeah, it's a science fiction thing, and we'll talk similar to when Amanda came on talking about Pandemic Patient Zero, like the nature of tie-ins and whether all board games should have a book. And honestly, the question seems to be yes, why not? If you can afford to do it, then yes. And of course, the sad fact is that when you get to a certain scale, then you start to be able to be more easily able to hire these people. Because whilst I might love to have a tie-in book, which is all about wee whimsical creatures, that's, you know, there's a lot of things I was like.
Little forest, and they make food together, and then it could be super cute. It could be a kid's book, right? We're actually on the Damnation, the Gothic game. There is a book coming as well. We're getting Fraser Lee to write it, and he was sharing some clips where he's reading parts of it, and I love his writing. Fraser Lee is amazing as a writer, and he just gets that Gothic vibe going instantly. I was getting in the captions for it when he's doing the reading, and I was like getting the chills. I was just I hope in the future I get to do more games that comes with the tie-in book, because it's just such an exciting thing to do.
And Jay Foolsguard, you're very welcome for the show, and thank you for being here. It's really lovely to have you. And Jay Foolsguard is going to work on their map drawing game, which might end up on Kickstarter someday. That sounds really fun.
I'm excited to see it.
And if you want to check out Dina, then where do you most like to be found?
I am super easy to reach when it comes to like Twitter and Instagram. I am, send me an email on my website is probably the fastest to get like my intention for work purposes. But if you want to check out what I'm doing and what I'm up to, Twitter is the one that is most updated. Instagram is more like the games that I'm playing. On TikTok is like silly things that I'm making for my clients and just me playing games and not work at all. It's a mess, but it's supposed to be a mess because we are all a mess, basically.
Well, it's the nature of the creative mind. Well, I want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, CD and Jay Foolsguard, for being around, and all the lurkers, anyone who's watching this after the fact. And most importantly, thank you, Dina, for being here. I mean, I feel like whether we did it publicly or privately, frankly, this is something immensely worth doing. And so I think that it will also be worth, whether it's in December or January, having a bit of a pause and doing this sort of thing of how are things going more regularly. That would be really nice. And so, thank you very much. Do you have any final words?
If anyone is wanting to play a game with me, I'm always up for it, because now I'm getting a little bit more time and I would love to play games. As you know, I have only played like 2 games since August, so.
And I hear you enjoy playtesting, so potentially if someone were making a map drawing game and you know, that person wanted you to playtest, then they should get in touch.
And you know, like on Friday now, tomorrow, I am taking my kid to his dad, so I will have a full week of kid-free time, which basically means that I'm available whenever. And I'm hoping to have at least 3 or 4 or 5 games being played during this time. And I've told like a bunch of designers that I am available and that they should hit me up. So if anyone is watching this and has something for playtesting, please let me play it.
The only thing I will say before we finish is to remind everyone once more that LDEC Game of the Month is Wibble. If you haven't already played it, definitely play it. If you have already played it, have you rated it on Board Game Geek? Play it again. Maybe you might, if you like it. And also, I've been pondering a new variant, which might tell you about, but lots of love. Everyone, so much love. And for now, bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, bye. Bye, bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeff Guard.
Bye-bye, Jeff Guard. Bye-bye, Dina. Bye-bye, everyone.